Hi, my name's Jennifer Lawrence, and I'm the Registrar and CEO of the College of Dental Hygienists of British Columbia. It is my pleasure today to take you through the new Quality Assurance Program history, development process, framework, and implementation. First, I'd like to talk to you about why we have to have a new Quality Assurance Program. In 2005, the Health Professions Act was changed and removed the continuing education requirement and replaced it with a new quality assurance requirement. As part of that, there needs to be an assessment tool in order to help a registrant guide their learning. So you may be wondering, why did the government change the Health Professions Act? Well, there's a growing body of research to suggest that as a human race, we're actually not the best self-assessors, which is hard sometimes to tell a group of dental hygienists because you routinely self-assess. However, it presents an interesting challenge as regulators. And Dr. Glenn Regehr, who is a leading expert in this area, gives a very good presentation about his research. And in fact, the point that he makes that makes this most clear to me is that the most depressed people in the world are actually the best at self-assessing. And it's actually a human coping mechanism that we're not good self-assessors because, quite honestly, if we always dwelled on what we were weak at, we probably wouldn't get out of bed in the morning. However, as a regulator, we still have to tackle this issue, which is why the change was made and why the requirement exists for an assessment tool to help guide your continuing education. In 2007, you may remember the college surveyed all registrants to find out their opinion about their current continuing education program, as well as what their thoughts would be on a new quality assurance program. The results were mixed about that quality assurance program, so the committee and the board reviewed all models out there to find the best one to meet the needs of the profession. Starting in 2008, the Quality Assurance Committee decided that they needed to set a vision and guiding principles to aid their work in developing and establishing a framework that would meet the needs of the profession. They brought in Dr. Glenn Regehr, who is a leading expert in this field, to help them with that work. So now join me as I go through the vision and the guiding principles that help guide the development of the new program. So the first component of the vision, as you will see, is that we wanted to establish a program that was fair, transparent, and above all, ensures protection of the public. At the end of the day, the college is tasked with ensuring the public is protected. Therefore, the Quality Assurance Program must achieve that vision. The next part of the vision is that we wanted to ensure that registrants are practicing at a safe and acceptable level while using reliable methods of practice assessment and professional development. We didn't want to invent something from scratch and test it out ourselves. We looked at the research. And lastly, the last part of the vision is to make sure that the program is reasonable to administer and participation should be manageable. As I walk you through this presentation, you will see that the vision of ensuring the public is protected, as well as making this program reasonable to administer and participation manageable, were the driving forces around creating the framework. So next, I would like to talk to you about the guiding principles that the Quality Assurance Committee, as well as the board, set to help evaluate the various models of quality assurance programs out there. The first guiding principle is to ensure that the public is protected. This obviously isn't surprising given that our mandate is to ensure the protection of the public and that they receive safe and ethical dental hygiene care. The second guiding principle is to ensure the program is evidence-based and cost-effective. We wanted to ensure that we could afford to administer the program with existing resources and that we didn't have to unnecessarily increase fees. Also, we wanted to ensure that we looked to the evidence. We did not want to have a program that was not supported by the research and the literature. The third principle is that maintaining and enhancing competency is the responsibility of the registrant. At the end of the day, maintaining your own competency is your responsibility, and only you know best how to do that. Certainly we are here to help aid you and provide you tools in order to make that possible, but your professional development is your responsibility. The fourth principle is that all registrants in practicing categories must participate in the Quality Assurance Program. I can tell you that this was a very difficult decision for both the committee and the board to make. Many discussions were had about this particular principle because we know and recognize that dental hygiene has created many pathways and your career may have taken you down many different areas. However, we butt up against our regulatory responsibility. When we give a full license, it allows you to practice your full scope at any time. We do not regulate or mandate when and where you practice. Therefore, we have to ensure that when you hold a full license, that those foundational pieces of dental hygiene remain competent and current. Guiding principle number 5 is that the materials that will inform you about the quality assurance program will be clear, concise, and accessible. We want to ensure that the materials provide meaningful feedback and support for you, as well as help you understand the process and policies behind the quality assurance program. Principle number 6 centers around making participation manageable and reasonable for you. And as you'll see, we really balanced this principle with the principle of public protection to find the right program for the profession. We are very mindful we didn't want something that was costly or time-consuming, because we respect and value your time while making sure that continuing competency and ongoing professional development is important. And lastly, the final principle is that we will continue to evaluate the program regularly. A small part of me wishes we could just check the box and move on to something else, but that wouldn't be prudent. We will continue to evaluate the program regularly to ensure that it meets the guiding principles, the needs of the public, the college, and you, the registrants. Now that we reviewed the guiding principles, I'd like to give you an example of how we use those guiding principles to assess the various methods of quality assurance program. We did consider on-site clinical assessment, and many registrants have asked me, well, if you really wanted to ensure the public is protected and you really wanted to ensure clinical competency, isn't the only way you can do that through an on-site inspection? And yes, that is true, which means the level of public protection and how it meets that guiding principle is very high. However, when we look at the principle of making sure the program is reasonable and manageable to participate in, that level goes down. And as you saw in the spring edition of Access, we really wanted to seek the right balance. And we really used those two principles as sort of a justice scale to ensure that one wasn't very high, like public protection, and one was very low. We needed to strike the right balance. So another example would be peer review. And for those of you who don't know what peer review is, that is where another one of your colleagues would review you, and then you would review them based on a certain set of criteria. The only dilemma with that is that your peer may not be objective. One, maybe they're a very close colleague, maybe they're a close friend of yours, and so perhaps their review might be not entirely accurate. Conversely, what is great for somebody might be incompetent for somebody else. Certainly that presents an interesting challenge when one of the principles is ensuring public protection. We need a reliable method of assessment in order to guide your continuing competency programs. As you will see, the framework that I'm going to share with you, we really believe strikes the right balance between public protection and making the participation reasonable and manageable. Now that we've reviewed the history, the vision, and the guiding principles, I'm sure you're all very eager to hear what you actually are going to have to do. So now we're going to talk about the framework. At the top of the framework is the Quality Assurance Assessment Tool. And what that will be is a mechanism to assess your competency to an entry level. Now you may wonder, why is it entry level? I've been practicing maybe 5, 10 years. Shouldn't I be expected to be at a higher level? Well, certainly we hope that you are. But from a regulatory standpoint, we can't hold existing registrants any higher than we hold the people coming into the profession. So what is the tool? Well, it's 75 questions, multiple choice, open book, and computer-based. So you'll be able to take this from the comfort of your own home or wherever is convenient for you. You'll be taking it sometime in January or February of your cycle, but you can take it anytime. We'll provide you a code, and whatever time works for you, you can take it. So if you're really good at 3 p.m., take it at 3 p.m. If you're really good at 7 a.m., you can take it at 7 a.m. It's entirely up to you, but it must be completed by February 28th because it will be a condition of your renewal for that year. So it's important to note that this test is what they call on-the-fly technology. So we actually have an item bank of 110 items. And from that, you will be randomly pulling 75 questions. So no two tools will look the same. So you and a colleague could take very different tools. In addition, the answers will be scrambled. So again, the tool will look vastly different, and obviously this is a security mechanism to protect the tool. So this tool has been developed in conjunction with the National Dental Hygiene Certification Board, or NDHCB. As you may know, they administer the national exam that all new graduates must take and pass to enter the profession. Therefore, they already had the questions that we needed to build the tool. In partnership with NDHCB, a group of BC dental hygiene educators came together in May 2011 to select the questions for the tool. and I want to assure you that their main focus was to ensure that these questions are as closely related to real-world practice as possible. We are not going to delve into the minutiae. They are going to be case-based and really represent how you practice on an everyday basis. So it's important to note that the Quality Assurance Assessment Tool is actually owned by the NDHCB, and we've negotiated with them in order to meet our principle of being reasonable and manageable that the cost will be no more than $125 per registrant, and you'll pay that directly to the NDHCB once in your 5-year cycle. If you're curious of what the QAP assessment tool will look like, there is an example on the NDHCB website. It costs about $30. You can claim continuing competency credits, and I'd encourage you to go online and take it. While it is designed to be a preparation tool for new graduates to take the full NDHCB, it will closely mirror what the assessment tool will look like. So you may be wondering, what happens after you take the assessment tool? Well, your results will be immediately fed into your online learning plan, and that's what I'd like to talk to you about next. One of the biggest changes of the new quality assurance program is that your cycle will be now 5 years in length instead of the 3 years that you're used to. In that 5 years, you will be required to take the assessment tool once, and the results of that tool will feed into an online learning plan. So, what is that online learning plan? Well, one of the key features of the assessment tool is to identify your strengths and your weaknesses. So really, the tool allows you to measure yourself against yourself. I want to assure you that just because an area is identified as weak doesn't mean that you're bad at it. It just means that you're not as good at it as you are as some of your strengths. So what does that mean for your learning plan? Well, the quality assurance tool will have identified your weakest area, and you'll be required to develop a learning plan in that area. It's going to be called your mandatory learning plan. You'll be required to develop a learning goal, as well as an action plan on how you would plan to address the weakest area. Then you'll go out and take continuing competency credits to meet your action plan, and then once you've taken those credits, you record them into your learning plan, much like you do already, and be asked to reflect on how those credits meet your action plan and your learning goals, and how you've been able to implement them in practice. So this graphic might look familiar to you. First you assess, then you diagnose, then you plan, implement, and evaluate. If this looks like AdPie, that's because it is. We really did try to mirror what you do on an everyday basis into your new quality assurance program. So the assess is your QAP assessment tool. The diagnose is where we find your strengths and weaknesses. The plan is where you're going to develop your learning goals and action plan for addressing that weaker area. Implement is where you're going to go take your continuing education to meet the learning goals and the action plan. And finally, evaluate. You're going to evaluate and reflect on how your CE activities met the learning goals and action plan and how they've been implemented into practice. So you may be wondering, does this tool and program have a successful and unsuccessful component? Well, yes, it does. As a regulatory body, we are tasked with public protection, and we obviously take that responsibility very seriously. In fact, you as the registrant want us to do our job because you want us to find those that may, for whatever reason, be practicing at a level that is not acceptable. We don't need one bad apple to ruin it for the rest. And for whatever reason, if someone has slipped below the acceptable level, we need to work with them so they are safe, competent, and truly reflect the high level of dental hygiene care we know you all give. So we have set a minimum level in order to be successful. And if you fall below that minimum level, we do have a process in place to address that. The first thing that I want to assure you, and you have my commitment, and I hope you've learned through the vision and the guiding principles, by no means is this program meant to be punitive. We are not looking to remove licenses. Of course, if we find such incompetent or impaired practice that it truly represents a threat to the public, we will have to take appropriate action. But that is not the first place we start. If, for whatever reason, you fall below the minimum, the first thing that happens is myself as registrar, as well as the staff, will review the result. If, for whatever reason, your computer stops working, your internet gets interrupted, you have a family emergency and aren't able to complete the tool for whatever reason, therefore getting an unsuccessful result, we will more than likely give you another code and you can try again. However, if we determine it is a valid result, we will have a team of dental hygiene assessors and mentors to work with you to find out what happened. If the unsuccessful result is determined as valid, you would be paired with a dental hygiene assessor or mentor who has been trained and calibrated in assessing entry-level competency. Through that process, you will work with them to identify what happened. Is it simply because that you're not great at taking an online assessment tool, or is there a practice issue there that needs further attention? Through that process, the assessor or mentor will make a report back to the Quality Assurance Committee, who will, on a case-by-case basis, determine what the best course of action will be. So one example of what that action may be would be a guided learning plan. So where a successful registrant will be able to set their own learning goals, action plan, and determine their own continuing competency credits, your plan will be much more guided, and you'll work with the assessor and the staff to develop those learning goals and to develop which action plan and continuing education would be appropriate for you. Or it may be that you do take the tool again, or in the most extreme circumstances, maybe some sort of on-site clinical inspection or exam may be required, but those would be in the most extreme circumstances. Once you have completed the remediation plan that the Quality Assurance Committee, in conjunction with yourself, has developed, then you will be required to take the assessment tool again. We hope that you're successful and you'll feed into the regular program and be on your way. Again, I want to assure you that by no means is the assessment tool designed to trick you or trap you. We are very committed to being fair and open and defensible, just like it says in our vision, and we are confident that the vast majority of registrants will be very successful at the tool. So now that you've heard about the history, the vision, the guiding principles, and the framework, the last piece we wanted to share with you is the implementation piece. The first thing we're going to be doing is a pilot phase in the fall of 2011. This will be a small cohort of volunteers from the profession to test out the technology, to make sure that it works, and to preliminary test some of the policies we've designed. Secondly, in 2012, a larger group of dental hygiene volunteers will be participating in another pilot process, and that pilot process will be a full year in length, and they will really have the ability to shape the final program that we will begin implementing in 2013. So yes, when will this become mandatory for you? So starting in 2013, we will be phasing in the program. It will be a long phase-in process, as we're only going to be accepting 600 registrants into the program per year. So what does that mean for you? Well, an example would be, if your continuing competency cycle, your 3-year cycle, ends at the end, so December 2013, then in 2014, you will have a 50-50 shot of being included in the 2014 year for the Quality Assurance Program. However, if you are not chosen for the 2014 Quality Assurance, you will be assigned another 3-year continuing competency cycle, and then in 2017, you will definitely be in the new Quality Assurance Program. We are planning full implementation by 2019. When you are selected for the new Quality Assurance Program, I can assure you you'll be given plenty of advance notice so that you can properly prepare for taking the tool. So you may be wondering, how do I prepare for this assessment tool? Well, as you heard in our guiding principle, we want to ensure that the materials to support you are clear, concise, and accessible. We are going to be having a study guide available to you, as well as a short list of recommended readings. Thank you for taking the time today to watch this video to learn about the new Quality Assurance Program. I know this is a lot of information to digest, but I hope you found the information useful. If you have any questions or thoughts about the program, please visit our website or contact the college.